Hello, this is Nigel and Colin with another Encore Years podcast. This is about retirement and learning to love it. And today we've got a really interesting man who's given up his time to come and talk to us. So we're very pleased to have you with us, Chris, and learn about the many things that you do.
Yeah, well, you say I've given up my time. I've given up my garden, actually, so it's not quite as impressive as it could have been. So there we are.
So to kick it off, Chris, what did you do before retiring?
Right, I was a doctor. I was a GP in West London for probably 30 years, and I retired when I was 60. In fact, I retired 2 days after I was 60. So it sounds as though I was quite keen to go, but it was not quite that straightforward. But I worked in the same area for 30 years, and prior to that my wife and I had worked in Africa for a little while as doctors, but we settled down to quite a long period as GPs in West London. My wife's also a GP.
Right. And tell me, after you retired, what were the first 6 months like?
What were the first 6 months like? I was trying to think about that, and it's 10 years and I can't really remember. They weren't bad, I know that. They were a time of settling. I think the biggest thing that had to settle was the relationship between me and my wife, Teresa, because, we'd had fairly busy jobs and we had a lot of time away from each other. It was an HA, often evenings as well. And then all of a sudden, there I was every day. That's surprising. I did a lot of preparing for retirement, actually, but I didn't prepare for that. So I think the first 6 months were boring things like, who does the cooking? How often do you do the cooking? Who puts the washing out? To have two at home doing that sort of thing, because my wife had retired before me, so she'd got routines. And I think I've seen this quite often. I mean, I don't think it's as strong as resenting me suddenly being there, but it was something she had to work around, and so did I. So I think my first 6 months was sort of working out how my wife and I were going to handle this retirement.
So that's really interesting, because you say you did lots of preparation, but the ones you didn't prepare for was you and your wife both in the house all the time together.
Yeah, that's true. It's settled, and now we're fine. We're very good at giving each other space and time, and we've got a way of working that works very well for both of us. I think she'd say the same, really.
And so, what would you say is your biggest achievement, your biggest post-retirement achievement?
I think that I had a plan and I stuck to it and it worked. That sounds a bit conceited, but it did, actually. I feel very, very happy in retirement, very content in retirement, very fulfilled in retirement. So I think that's my biggest achievement, that because Tretta and I did it together, what we planned for my retirement has actually happened and worked. So that's quite good.
Because, I mean, the contentment is so important, isn't it? And often we don't hear that. We hear, disappointment or boredom or whatever.
You often think, I've got lots of time when I retire, so I can work out what I'm going to do, because I haven't got time now, I'm busy working. And I think, or certainly my experience is, that's the wrong way around. I think it's quite a shock to retire into nothing, to wake up one morning and think, actually, today's empty, tomorrow's empty, the next day is empty. I think I would find that quite depressing and demoralizing.
Chris, what activities have you carried out that's in retirement?
I'll tell you what I did. I'll tell you how it all went together. Before I retired, I went to a course on retirement run by the British Medical Association. I went not because I wanted to go to a course on retirement, but I needed professional development points. So I thought I'd just go along because you got them. And in the morning, we had talks by very boring accountants about money. And in the afternoon, we had a talk by two very nice elderly ladies that reminded me of the two ladies on the Repair Shop on television that do the teddy bears. Very sort of colourful and fluffy, And so I thought, this isn't going to be very good. And they gave the same talk to butchers, bakers, candlestick makers. And they had a sort of a structure. And they said, right, when you retire, work out what you like and enjoy in your current job and replace it with something similar. They said, do something new completely. They said, do something with your brain, something to keep your brain cells going, and do something voluntary. I remember that. And they also said, don't sell your car, which I thought was interesting. Don't sell your car if you've got 2 cars, don't suddenly sell one because you think you need one. I thought, anyway, so they had this sort of structure, and actually it sort of worked for me. I trained as a magistrate, so that was my new project, doing something completely different. I quite liked, when I was working, I enjoyed teaching medical students, and so I arranged to carry on teaching medical students, which I still do. And the voluntary bit, I do some teaching for the Refugee Council, keeping the brain going. My wife's Polish, so I learned Polish. In fact, I had my Polish teacher in Warsaw on Zoom this morning. So these things, and I think being part of a church community, that all carries on, of course. That you don't suddenly retire from that. And that's quite a source of stability. It was for me. And I've become involved in the repair cafe there. I'm involved in the community lunches that we arrange for people every month. So I've got time to do that sort of thing. So I've followed the 2 ladies from my retirement course, and I'm quite evangelical, and when other people talk about retirement, to sort of pass on their wisdom really worked for me. And so that's what the sort of stuff I do. And I've got 4 grandchildren, and that produces its own workload really, which is a pleasure. Well, apart from 5:30 in the morning, but that's life.
So the 2 fluffy ladies had it right then.
They were probably the 2 most useful people I've ever come across, really, I think.
So the magistrate is very interesting. I think Nigel would make a good magistrate now.
I don't know. It's about having common sense and making sensible decisions and following guidelines. It's a bit like being a GP, actually. Being a GP these days, a lot of what you do is guideline, protocol driven, and that's exactly what being a magistrate is. You don't need to do any law. I did a bit of law at university, so I suppose there was always a bit of, my degree contained law, weirdly. So there's always a bit of an interest, but you don't have to know anything about law. You don't need to.
To answer Colin's question, I think it's nice for you to say that, Colin, but there's so many things I'd like to do. There just isn't the time to do all of them. I think you've got to select what you want to do and do it.
Well, they retire us at 75.
Sorry, Colin, that's not on. That's good. Oh, just wrote it out. Sorry, nice thought. Oh, nice thought. You could be all right. No, I wouldn't be very good. Yeah.
So there's a window. You see. One of the things you can talk about is what happens next, and I think I was thinking about that recently because I'm 70 this year. So the magistracy will stop in 5 years' time. I teach medical students on an ad hoc basis, a couple of times a week at the very most, and often not at all. But there'll come a point when there's a sort of a muttering in the background of, is the old fool still doing it? Because because I'm a long way from practicing as a doctor now, 10 years. And a lot of the people I teach with are younger than my kids. So that will come to an end. And I think I'm more concerned about that stage in my life.
Yes.
Than the current one. Because I think the first retirement was really like just moving to a different way of doing things, But I think there is going to come a point when it's harder to do the things which now fill my time. And so for me, the retirement wasn't a problem, but I think, getting to the stage where you can no longer do these things that keep you going. Get ill, I'm not ill yet, but it can easily happen. We all know that you can't plan with any certainty at our age. So that's probably more of a concern to me than retirement was. I quite look forward to retirement, but I'm not looking forward to the time when I'm too old to do some of the things I do now. Does that make sense?
It makes absolute sense. And it would be very interesting to know when maybe you can talk to 2 fluffy ladies again and say,
Well, I think, retirement itself from work, stopping work and, losing whatever gives you a sense of self-worth is recognized. But I think old people are not as old as they used to be. My kids complain no end that we're not like proper old people sitting at home and going to whist drives. We're active and we do stuff, but that will not go on forever. So I think we're going to have to face a different sort. I mean, my granddad, I remember he retired from the railways at 65, got a clock, potted in his greenhouse for 2 years and dropped down dead. And I think that was a fairly common,
It was.
but I mean, it's not now. If we're lucky, we're given a bit more time. And I think that's more of a worry for me, to be honest, than retirement was.
That's a very, very interesting point. So, how are you going to get the ideas and plan for this?
Do you know, I don't know, because it's only, I think it's because I'm 70 this year. It's a sort of a point. I mean, I don't care about being 70. I'm not bothered by being 70. I don't feel old like my image of my granddad, for example. But it does make you think that this won't go on forever,
Yes.
and I think it's, yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, none of us knows, whether we're going to be fit or even alive in 5 years' time. It's just the way the world is, isn't it? You can't change it. So I don't know, but I think I'm going to have to put my mind to it. You're right. I need my two ladies again, but I don't think they're available, sadly. But I think it's something to recognise and then try and do something about it. I suppose what you need to do is to have plans that don't involve you being as fit as you are now. I don't know what that will mean, but it will be something. I will plan for it, I think, because I'm a sort of a control freak, really. I like to. In fact, that was one of the main changes when I retired. All the stuff I do really keeps me quite busy, but I'm totally in control of it. If I don't want to teach, I say I'm not teaching. If I don't want to do a magistrate sitting, I say I'm not available that day. If I don't want to go to the repair cafe, I don't tick the box to say I'm available. And that's so totally different from my working life, which was about being at people's beck and call. And it was, I think towards the end, I felt very much out of control of my life, not out of control, but, the other people were determining what I had to do. And I think retiring, that's another enormous difference for me. I can say no to all of the above. Yeah.
But that's very interesting, because a lot of people, it's the complete opposite. Their job is very regimented and then they retire and they're kind of just shuffling around, no idea what to do.
Yeah. Oh, no. I think I've got mine in little boxes, actually.
One of the people we interviewed said that he would recommend to retirees to plan education.
You mean to learn something new?
Exactly. Decide what your hobbies are or what you want to do, and then to go for education of some kind.
Yes, I did that when I first retired. I quite like classical music and weird 20th century classical music. So I found a course at Richmond, adult education. I thought I'll go and do some courses. Courses are good. And I really didn't like it, to be honest. I think a lot of people, I don't know if you've been to adult education classes, quite often they're people that stick pins in the programs and go to a few things. It's a way of filling time, and that's absolutely fine. But it was quite an interesting mix of people, not many of whom were actually interested in what we were doing. So I stopped doing that. I'd say with this language learning, because I've been doing it for a long time, I just do it more obsessively now. And I'm going abroad for a week's intensive language course as a birthday present, believe it or not, from my wife for my 70th.
Great.
How odd is that?
For Polish.
Yeah. I'm going to the Baltic Sea. Most people think I'm mad.
No.
But I think, that was there already. And I think had I not been doing that, I would have learnt something new. Not sure what, but I'd have done something. I think actually there's a lot of evidence anyway that if you, particularly learning languages, sort of put off the day when the dementia strikes, I think, or can do. I mean, it's not always the case, but it's a way. So I think I quite like doing that. Yeah.
And so all this, if you had to sort of sum up the advice, as I say, if your best friend was retiring tomorrow, Chris, what would you say?
I would say what the ladies said to me. I would say work out what you get out of your job, whether it's meeting new people or having an interesting academic background or whatever, and find a way of replacing that, in a more controllable, less 9 to 5 way. I think that's particularly a problem if you feel very much identified by your job. I've known doctors who, their whole identity was about being a doctor. I never quite felt that, so I didn't mind losing that. But some people do. And I think it's about identifying what does matter and replacing it. But whatever you do it before you retire. You don't do it on the Monday morning when you don't have to go into work. And do something voluntary. Do something voluntary. You meet other people. You feel you're doing something useful. Because I think a lot of people in their retirement start to feel a bit useless, that they're not contributing anything. And, maybe in their job, they were contributing a lot to whatever they did, and then they retire. I think if you do something voluntary, and I think it needs to be something that sort of matters to you, not just go and work in Oxfam to do a couple of voluntary hours a week. So I do something voluntary and plan something that gives you what you get in your work, I think, to be honest.
That's just great advice, Chris. Absolutely. Really good. I wish I'd done all that.
Well, it's always, I talk about it in theory, and of course it's not always that simple. Nothing ever is it? But I'm a lot happier, more content than I would have been had I not done that planning, I think.
Right. And so, what next?
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. What next? I don't know, and that's, in fact, what's a bit worrying when you ask me that question is I don't think about that. And I think that's probably bad because, like I said, what I do now is not going to go on forever. So I need to do something else. And I don't know what that is. I mean, we're not, I know some people want to travel the world. We don't particularly want to do that just for the sake of it. But so I don't know, I'm afraid. But I think I'm probably at the stage now, which is halfway between retiring and not being able to do stuff I want to think I maybe need to do a bit of thinking about it.
So it's really interesting because this hasn't come up before, but it's almost like a sort of 2-stage retirement.
Very much so. And I think actually the first one's easier because it's inevitable. And you think about it, and it's attached to money and finances and all this stuff. So it's all very real. But I think the second one is going to be a little bit more problematic.
I don't think that at all. Yeah, I'm so interested in that because it's never occurred to me that I'm ever going to change and I can carry on doing this.
But is that reality, or is that because you don't think about it? I don't know.
I think it's more the latter. I don't think about it. I still feel 19.
Well, I think 19 might be pushing it for me, but I mean, I know what you mean. Yeah, so do I. I think that's been, I don't think it's a problem, when I say I haven't thought about it, because I've got a bit of time till it matters, but I think it's something I need to start thinking about.
Yes.
I wouldn't have recognised it, 10 years ago when I was retiring. No. That's all that mattered, yeah.
It's a good point. It's an excellent point. Something hadn't occurred to me. Right. Thank you so much, Chris. That was just so much value in that. It's absolutely terrific.
Oh, it's a pleasure talking to you. Actually, it's quite useful because it has actually made me think. Because I think, like you say, Nigel, it is quite easy just not to think about it and think you will go on like this. But I think the reality is, certainly for me, I won't. Whatever I'm doing in 10 years' time, it won't be what I'm doing now. Well, certainly I'll have been kicked out of the magistracy. The medical school would probably not want somebody as ancient as me clogging up the building. So, I will be forced to change. So I need to make sure I'm in charge of it.
Well, thank you very, very much from me as well, Chris. It's really been very interesting. And I know that other people will learn from the words, the wise words you put forward. So, bro, are we done? I think we're done. So it's encore and out from us. Encore and out.
Thank you.
Well, Nige, that again was the most interesting man, Chris.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it amazes me how different each of these interviews are and how they all enrich your understanding, your learning.
Yes, definitely. And the key point he was saying was these two fluffy ladies.
these
Very
two
funny.
ladies who we had no expectation, and they came with the 4 or 5 things that were just sort of sorted it. So the first one they said is find out what you like in your current work and replace it with something similar in your retirement.
And very important, plan your retirement before you retire.
Yeah,
Don't wait till you retire and then start thinking about it.
yeah, and then the sort of the education, the learn something new, so his in languages and things, very important.
Very important. And um, his retirement consists of quite a lot of voluntary work, and he's become a magistrate. So new learning, a whole new experience there.
Yeah, and the social side for all of that. So yeah, like that. But I think the thing that was interesting, and it slightly you could tell was unsettling him, and we hadn't come across this before. But we need to get a name for this, Nige. But the kind of the second stage. How would you sum up?
That's very good. I mean, it's something I'd never thought about in my own plan at all, or anyone else's, that your choices run out at some stage through health or through age or whatever. So you have the second part of retirement to plan for. It's a new one on me.
But it'll be a great. I think we can dig into this with other people and see if other people,
Yes.
have come across this, or is it
Yeah,
something new?
absolutely. It's educational.
Yep, yep, definitely.
And in a way, we're stupid. Any of us are stupid if we don't consider that, because we're not
Yes.
going to go on forever.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. So, are we done, Nige?
Are we done, Colin, brother? Yes.
We are. So it's encore and out.
Encore and out for me too. Thank you.